Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bryan Enberg. I'm not only the VP for the Professional Services Division of Northeast Mountain Guiding, but I am also the Vice President of the Mountain Rescue Association, and I'm the Social Media Marketing Coordinator for the MRA. So what we're going to talk about today is how we can use social media for SAR, and specifically how we can use social media for SAR to support the brand that is your team. Really, I get the biggest question I always get is why bother? Why should we be doing this? Why should we be spending all of this time with volunteers, not going out in the woods and searching, but reaching out on social media and Facebook and Twitter and blog posts? And really, it's the best way for a volunteer organization to connect with the world around us. Everybody pretty much is on social media anymore, some sort of social media stream. And it's a very easy, very effective, and very cost-effective way for us to reach those audiences. For my professional side, before I got into mountain guiding and SAR instruction, I worked in New York City in new media, and we would spend tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars to have access to these big audiences to get our message across. Now, with a Twitter feed and with a social media, like a Facebook page, I can reach some of those same size audiences without spending a dime. It's just the time, the blood, sweat, and tears that we invest in it. And social media is a great way to get out there and raise awareness as to what our teams are doing, what we are about, and maybe some of the needs that our teams have. Social media also has this tremendous power to amplify a message. I'm not just getting in touch with the people that are following my page, but if they're putting my message on their page, now all of their friends see that message, and their friends might spread that message out further than that. So we get that viral sort of response to a good message. So it's a very simple, very cost-effective way to reach a lot of people with a good message. Before you jump into social media, though, just like any search and rescue mission, we really have to set up some objectives. And I really recommend, sit in front of the paperwork that you would use to manage a search mission and write up an incident action plan. Don't just dive into it. Let's figure out what our objectives are. What do we want to get out of this social media stream? Are we looking for fundraising? Are we looking to use this as a recruiting tool? Are we looking to use it for an educational tool for local climbing communities? Or just to support the missions that we have ongoing within the team? But before you start getting too wrapped up in developing a good stream, you really need to decide what the purpose of that stream is and lay out some good, clear objectives. From there, you can start looking around at the various communications channels that are out there. It seems like every month or so there's a new social media stream that pops up and starts trending that everybody's really interested in. So you need to go and start looking at those various options and figuring out what's the best communication channel that's out there to meet your objectives. And then, of course, you got to get all of that integrated into your existing online presence, which usually means your main team web page. And I'll actually jump out of the presentation here for a second, and we'll take you right to the MRA's page. This is the Mountain Rescue Association. You'll notice that within a lot of our content here, we've given up a lot of real estate to our Facebook page stream, which ports right into this section of our website. Everything else that's on this page requires our web developer to go in and make a change, make an update to the page, which is sometimes time-consuming. Could take a couple of days. Depending on who does your website, it might be a volunteer. You may actually have to pay your web developer maybe to make changes to your page. But by giving up this real estate here for this social media stream, you can see that I've got a post that went up 3 hours ago that accomplishes a lot of the objectives that we have for the Mountain Rescue Association social media, which is to, one, reach out and promote the teams that we work with. So, strong work as always to El Paso County Search and Rescue. We got some great images that are attached with that. And it's basically information that came and content that came off of their page. We've got some good educational material coming up after that from a friend of the MRA, Peak Rescue Institute, on how to use tandem prusiks on a rescue load. So supporting the education side of what the Mountain Rescue Association does. So we've given up a good bit of real estate to make sure that we're looking at that social media page, because the social media page is very easy for me to update. I can update it from my phone, update it to from my computer in my office at any point, and really quickly get some new information out there onto the page without having to bring in a web developer. So, policy and voice is usually the next biggest concern that people have about using social media. And there's a lot of groups that are out there that are very hesitant to use social media because they've heard of some of the disasters and the horror stories, you know, people posting pictures of victims during a search and breaking HIPAA violations and things like that. So it's really important, once you've established your objectives and you know where you want to communicate, now setting up a policy and how we're going to do that. There's 8 really must-haves in good social media policy. You want to make sure you've got a purpose here. Have a purpose. You know, what are your objectives? What is the mission of the page? Make sure you're responsible. Make sure you're posting things that are fair to share with the world, that you want to share with the world, and that's going to look good for your team as a brand to be sharing. You want to be authentic. This is social media, so they don't want it to sound robotic. You know, they want to feel like they're interacting with your team as a brand, so you need to be that way. You want to consider your audience, and we'll talk a little bit later in the presentation about how we can identify who our audience is using some of the social media analytic tools that are in Facebook and Twitter. So find out what your audience is and try and get them the information that they really want to see and they enjoy seeing from your page. And there's a bunch of different ways to do that. And we'll show you guys some of that stuff in a little bit. Exercise good judgment. This is always a hard one because a lot of times, especially in the search and rescue world, we're privy to a lot of information that maybe is not going to get out into the public. And one of the things that I've done to try and make sure that I don't cross any of those lines is, rather than me posting information about the search that I've been to, I'll usually go onto another website, a newspaper article that might have a good description of what was done, but basically followed the press release from the PIO and link to that rather than write up my own story. So this way I know that I'm not going to break any boundary there. Obviously I'm going to give that news report a good read and make sure that they're as accurate as the news can be, and they themselves haven't crossed any boundaries in their reporting. But then they usually have some good photographic, you'll usually have some video that they've attached to the post. So I'll link back to that. So this way I keep myself out of getting into trouble. Obviously we want to respect intellectual property. There's a lot of content that's out there on the internet. We don't want to just start linking to content that somebody else owns, somebody else has rights to. So be very careful about doing that. We want to protect confidential and private information, obviously. The HIPAA violations, again, we're privy to a lot of confidential information during our searches, and we obviously cannot share that with the community. We obviously can't be posting up pictures of our subjects during the rescues. So we need to protect their information, protect them from photos, protect us from HIPAA violations. And the biggest one is we got to bring value. We've got to bring value not only to our team, because if we're not bringing value to our team through the social media effort, there's really no point in doing it. But we want to bring value to the community, because if the community doesn't see any value in what we do, they're either not going to follow our page or really not going to care much about what we do. So the voice is really important. We call it the voice of brand. You know, what is the voice of the Mountain Rescue Association? Is it official or is it social? With New Jersey Search and Rescue's page, the team that I'm a member of, we go back and forth between being social and being official. When we're dispatched to a search, there's a very plain Jane posting that's put out that NJSAR has been requested to assist in a search in this township maybe. And that might be the only information that we ever put back other than NJSAR has returned, and maybe we'll link to a web posting from a news organization later on. But we want to make sure that the world knows that we're out there doing the things that we say that we do. So when we do get a call, we'll say that we've been requested to respond on a mission. But then throughout the week, we're posting up a lot of educational material. We're posting up some funny SAR pictures that we see, things that we know that based on our interactions with our audience and the community and what the analytics are telling us that our community likes to see. So having a good split between that social and official voice is important. I'll pop back for a second because one of the things you should all consider in managing a social media feed is not just having one person doing it, because people take vacation time, people get stuck at work, and maybe they can't post to Facebook. It's good to have a group of people that have access to your page, but it's also important that that group of people can sound like they're one voice and be a consistent voice of your team as a brand. So we have probably 4 or 5 people that post to my New Jersey Search and Rescue's page. We have 3 or 4 people that post to the MRA page, and pretty much we're very proud of the fact that very few people can tell who is posting that day. If I post something or Kristen Ryan posts something to the NJSAR page, you really can't tell the difference between the two of us. We sound like we're NJSAR. You can't tell that we're two different distinct people. So continuing on your social media policy, your first priority has to be to make sure you're strengthening the team, we're respecting privacy and property, we respect the agency that we work for or work under. I like to try and, again, redirect to credible sources when I can, so I'm not doing a description of what my team did in the mission, but we're linking to either the sheriff's office or the police department that's put out a press release, because now we know that